Hello there. I hope everything is going good. This is, as usual, the weekly video. So this week we're going to have our second exam. Before you take the second exam, there is going to be just a little bit of new material we're going to cover, but don't worry, hopefully this material will be a little bit easier and a little bit of a reprieve from some of the harder stuff that I know you've been working on. So far in the course, we've looked at the idea of taking a sample to hopefully estimate the parameter. And we've said that anytime that we take a sample instead of a whole population, in other words, every time we look at a statistic, we know there's going to be a little bit of error. That statistic is not going to be exactly equal to the parameter. And that's what we call sampling error, because it's error due to the process of sampling. Now, the last thing we're going to cover today in this module is we're going to cover what's called non-sampling error. And non-sampling error is an umbrella term, so it encompasses a lot of different types of error, but it's just basically anything else that can go wrong when looking at or trying to estimate a parameter. And in fact, these errors can even occur even if you looked at a population instead of a sample. And so let's kind of talk really briefly about some of those and you're going to see some in the videos today as well. The two most important ones you're going to cover today are what we call non-response error and what we call coverage error. So non-response error, that's when somebody refuses to answer a survey. So we know we're going to have some error there. As an example, so let's say that somebody's trying to take a survey and they're trying to learn about people and how they're going to vote in the upcoming election. And so they call people, but they call them between the hours of 5 and 6 p.m. Well, in that case, that's usually when people are eating dinner. They're probably going to refuse to participate. That's what we call non-response error. Now, there are times that non-response error is not a big deal, and non-response error is not really going to cause us problems when that sample still reflects the characteristics of the population. Whereas if for whatever reason that non-response error is indicative or only maybe a certain particular group is refusing to answer, that's when you're going to really have problems and that error is going to become big. Now, we're not going to calculate non-response error. You only need to know, what it is and when it happens. The other type of error we're going to cover is what we call coverage error. Coverage error is whenever a part of the population has no chance of being in the sample. So notice by definition, if you have a simple random sample, since a simple random sample says that everybody in the population has equal chance to be in the sample, you will never have coverage error. So simple random samples are one type of sample that cannot have coverage error. So what is an example of coverage error? So suppose we're interested in people that live in Lexington, Kentucky, and we're going to do an online poll. And so somehow we select a bunch of random people from Fayette County, from Lexington, and we send them emails. Well, anyone that doesn't have an email has zero chance of being in our sample. And so those are one of those things that we have to be aware of. Often the people that do not get included in the sample are sometimes the poorest people that don't have internet access, people that maybe don't have a phone, things like that. And so that can cause a problem. That's when we have coverage error. And so again, you're going to get more information on both of these and non-response error in the videos today and the two worksheets that I'm going to have you do. And then finally, after you get that out of the way, you'll have those two worksheets. I'm going to have you take the second exam. Just like the last exam, I've got a review sheet as well as a key to that review sheet posted on Canvas. You're going to want to sit down, go through those first, study the quizzes, look over the things that we've done, make sure you're comfortable with the material. You are allowed to use your notes and the material on the exam, but the exam is timed. So if you don't study beforehand, you're going to run out of time. So make sure you're comfortable with the material, organize your notes, know where things are, so that way if you need to reference something quickly, you have that option while taking the exam. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about today was I was going to give you one more opportunity for extra credit on exam 2. So again, our new topic for today is what we call non-sampling error. And one of the other types, we actually already looked at this at the very beginning of the module, is when you have survey questions that are worded poorly. And the wording of the questions can change how people are going to respond. Well, this is another type of non-sampling error. And so what I'd like you to do for the bonus points is if you look at Beyond the Numbers 2.30, this is on page 157 of your workbook, and Exhibit 1 is a good example of how changing the wording of a question can have a drastic effect on how people respond and why that's an error. So there's two questions there in Exhibit 1. what I'd like you to do is answer those 2 questions, send those answers to me in an email, and each of those questions will be worth 2 points. In the instructions here, it is going to have you read an article, and if you'll notice up in the source, is going to give you the link to how to find the article. If you have trouble finding that article, please send me an email and I'll send you a direct link to the article. So as always, if you have questions, please feel free to ask. I'm also always available to meet in my office or on Skype if you're out of town. So please don't hesitate to ask if you have questions. That's what I'm here for. And I hope you all have a great week.